The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now, your hosts, Kristi Scales, Aisha Morrison, Nicole Hutchison, and Jess Navarez.
Hello. Welcome in, Cowboys Nation, to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys in the SWBC studio. I'm Nicole Hutchison alongside Aisha Morrison, Jess Navarez, and Miss Lovely Kristi Scales. It is, belated Valentine's Day. How was y'all's Valentine's Day, ladies?
It's good. Chocolatey.
Really?
Chocolatey.
Yeah, shout out to Kristi for these chocolates.
Yeah,
Kristi.
you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Aisha and I already dipped into them.
Everyone needs a little bit of extra
It's 10 o'clock.
flowers or chocolate or whatever, candy on Valentine's Day.
That is very true. Yeah. Did y'all have any special plans?
Yeah, it was good. Matt and I went to the movies.
Okay.
And it was fun.
Love that for you.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I've been married nearly 30 years, so Lewis and I went out to dinner, but when you're married that long, you use a gift certificate. So
True. What'd you do, I? I'm sorry. Yeah, it's okay. Me too, sister girl. It's all right. We were in the same boat. But we also had some cool things that happened yesterday. The Dallas Cowboys introduced our new defensive coordinator, Mr. Mike Zimmer. Kristi, I want to obviously, before we get to some big takeaways from yesterday's press conference, you were here when Mike Zimmer was defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. What was that, late 1990s?
Well, no, he started in 1994 and
Early
went through 2006. Yeah. So I've known Mike a long time. I'm interested in y'all's first impressions because, again, I've known him a long time, and the reputation is that he's kind of crusty and hard-nosed and things like that. And I know that obviously it's first impressions with a press conference, or maybe what you had seen from him on the sidelines when he was head coach of the Vikings. But Aisha, what were your thoughts listening to the press conference? Or Nicole, what were your thoughts being there and seeing him for the first time?
It was pretty cool. He didn't give me, like he used the word grouchy in the press conference. He didn't give me grouchy or the vibes that his reputation precedes him. And he kind of touched on the way that his coaching style has pretty much evolved the last few years, and how it's improved. And I like that. I think that he has that coaching style as far as like requiring discipline, and I think that'll really impact this Cowboys defense for sure.
Jess?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I went in there kind of just, I wanted my own perspective, and I didn't want his reputation to kind of impact what I was going to see. He's hilarious. I don't know what anybody's talking about. He's so funny. That whole press conference, he was so firm with his answers, but then there were moments like when his watch went off. He's so funny. That was my first impression. Just media to coach is he was really great with us, and he was really open, really honest with his answers, and he didn't have to be, right. He could have gone in there, had short answers, not really said much, but he was very open, very honest, and I always appreciate that out of a coach.
And he was all smiles with McCarthy. I think they're really
You can see they get along well and respect each other. But I've always said the thing that I learned about Mike Zimmer, because when he arrived in 1994, he was the assistant to the assistant. So you know how you have the position coaches. So at the time, Jimmy Johnson had just left, and so this is Barry Switzer's first year as head coach in 1994, but most of the staff was still Jimmy's staff that had come with him from Miami Hurricanes. And so Dave Campo at the time was the defensive backs coach. So Zimmer comes on board. He had been a college coach at Washington State, Weber State, and he is the assistant to Campo. And then we lose another one of our defensive coordinators after winning the Super Bowl again the following season, and Dave Campo gets promoted to defensive coordinator. Mike Zimmer goes from assistant defensive backs coach to defensive backs coach. And so that's when it's Deion Sanders. That's when it's Darren Woodson and George Teague and James Washington and just really great players, Kevin Smith. And then Dave Campo becomes head coach in 2000. And Campo was head coach for 3 years, and Zimmer gets promoted to defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And then after 3 years and 3 straight 5-11 seasons, Campo was no longer head coach. Bill Parcells came in, and I think one of the greatest compliments to Mike Zimmer is that Parcells came in, and his background is defense. He's a defensive guy. You know, Bill Belichick had been his defensive coordinator for years in New York. And he keeps Mike Zimmer, and Parcells also keeps the 4-3 defense for another year. Then the second year of Parcells, he decides, okay, we're going to go with 3-4. That was Parcells' background with the Giants. And he kept Zimmer on, and Zimmer had to learn going from 4-3 to 3-4. But Zimmer was here for the entire term of Parcells, and it was after Bill Parcells retired after the 2006 season, and Wade Phillips came in as head coach. And, of course, Wade had been a longtime defensive coordinator and had his own defense and stuff like that. And that's when Mike left, went to Atlanta for a year, Cincinnati for a few years as coordinator, and then ultimately head coach of the Vikings. But one more thing, about when he first arrived and his whole time here, man, he'd let those DBs have it. And I learned so much about the English language from Mike Zimmer that with the same 4-letter word, the one you're thinking of right now, in one sentence on the football field at practice, you can use that same 4-letter word in one sentence as a noun, an adverb, an adjective, a transitive, an intransitive verb, a dangling participle. He can let him have it.
But he said, and he talked about that yesterday,
how
how he will let his players have it, but they always come back and say, like Xavier Rhodes, they come back and say, you know, I appreciate you for staying on me. So I think that'll be a good thing for a lot of these guys in that defensive room. When you talk about the players, though, that he's developed and had a hand in being some of the greats, how do you feel like he can do that for some of these guys on this Cowboys defense?
Well, you still have guys that are young in their career. This will be Bland's 3rd year.
Yeah.
But you also have a nice mix of veterans. Here's the thing, though, with the veterans, is Stephon Gilmore going to be back? Is Jordan Lewis going to be back? Is Jaron Kearse going to be back?
Yeah.
So this defensive backfield may be turning younger again, just out of necessity. Either the Cowboys can't match or don't want to match what some of these guys are going to command in free agency, and they'll have to restock through the draft or maybe sign some younger free agents.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to first answer the original question I got. I was just listening to y'all, so I was just listening to Kristi's story, trying to take it all in. But he's precious, clearly. I mean, clearly he's just. I mean, honestly, so much of like football and some of the even just some of what you were saying about him as a person, it just reminds me, in the being able to use that particular word in all those different ways. I'm like, oh, that sounds like the military to me.
See, I was going to ask you. It reminds me of, like, you probably had drill sergeants that.
Yeah.
but later you appreciated them.
Oh,
more?
absolutely, and it kind of likens to why I've grown to be very excited about this hire, because I do think. And he's mentioned it. He mentioned it yesterday. Is that, you know, great players want to be coached.
Yeah.
That they want to be pushed. And I had 2 drill sergeants when I came into the military that really made the most impact on me. One of them, I stay in contact with her every day. She was so influential with just the demand of being a leader and letting me know, like, you can't do certain things because people are looking to you.
Yeah.
And just kind of, she set the standard for me. But we were about like 5-6 weeks in. No, it wasn't that long. It was like 3 weeks in, rather. And we had a drill sergeant come. I'll never forget him. His name is Drill Sergeant Groves. He about as tall as me. He was just coming back from Special Forces school. He had just finished Special Forces, and I don't know if y'all know what Special Forces is.
I was about to ask you, what is that?
It's the important folks. It's the ones that do, you know, the stuff that people that play Call of Duty think they'd be doing.
Okay.
They're important, and their level, their standard is so different. It's so much more heightened. And I remember she brought out the side of me that made me be a leader, but he pushed me in a way that I can't really put into words, and I think he made me understand how much of being an example, you know, meant, but also, too, the demand of my physicality and what I needed to be physically and put into my body and structure my diet, and also, too, just hone into those moments. Like, there's moments, even in the military, where you're like, oh, this is a minute, this is a time that I have to step up here to show people around me what it looks like and set the standard. And I think Zimmer has that. I think he has that ability to capture players. Because when you listen to all these retired players and all these are not just your average players. These are Hall of Fame level players talking about the impact that he made on them. And so even though I'm sure he's a softie, y'all. Like outside of this, and I'm just being straight up with you because you gotta have a switch. And because even he mentioned his grandkids, and you can tell how his demeanor changed when he talked about his grandkids and stuff. I think the time that he took it, he went to Jackson State with Deion. And I think that when you talk about his ability to, you mentioned, Nicole, how much he said, okay, I took a step back and I even looked at some of my style and things. A good balance of understanding the players of today and being honest with yourself about the fact that they're different. And then also, too, maybe sprinkling in, like, being himself still, I think it could be healthy for this team. It could be healthy. And when you talk about the scheme part, to answer the next part of your question really quickly, I think it's going to help everybody because he mentioned the word fundamentals multiple times yesterday. And I do think when you look at this team, and especially this defense, when they did get into trouble, when they did make mistakes, a lot of the time it was because the fundamentals were slipping and there were things. So he's also going to make sure that everyone understands the depth of their position. And when I say that, I mean they understand all the ins and outs of what the position calls for because he requires a lot as well. Dan Quinn required a lot, but he requires a lot specifically to your position because the disguises and some of the things he does, you got to be heady and you have to be disciplined. So I'm looking forward to him. I know that was wordy, but I was very excited hearing him because I was like, man, I know he gives me that vibe. He gives me that vibe of he's going to push you in a way that maybe you've never been pushed before. And it's been good.
How much of that do you feel like we've been missing from this Cowboys team? That ability, not saying that Dan Quinn wasn't that guy that could switch it up and know the difference of being a coach and being hard-nosed. But how much of that do you feel like this team has just been missing, that holding guys accountable and making sure they get the best out of it?
Well, I think Zimmer mentioned the word discipline multiple times within his press conference. I wanted to actually go back and re-listen and count how many times he mentioned discipline because he kept saying it. And I don't necessarily think that there's been a discipline problem within this team. I think this team holds themselves accountable. I think the coaching staff does that. I just think at times, back to Aisha's point, it's not as consistent as it should be, right? And so even at the really difficult times or even when, the game's pretty much lost, the discipline was gone for them at that point. And so I think somebody like Zimmer coming in can only just make them better. Something I wanted to bring up too, and how I think he can do that is he mentioned coaching players how they need to be coached. So he doesn't have a one-size-fits-all way of coaching. Absolutely. He has a very specific way of how he's going to coach these different players. So you can't coach Micah Parsons the same way you're going to coach DeMarvion Overshone, who's going to come in here after a year off of injury, right? Like that's just not how you can coach within this league, especially now with the younger players and kind of the generational shift that's been talked about a lot. And so I think he has a good concept of that. I think Mike McCarthy has a good concept of that. I think he always has. So seeing them work together and really cohesively is something I'm excited to see from both Mike and Mike.
I think I'm also excited to see what kind of impact this makes on Dak too. I was reading what Tony Romo had said about just talking about Dan Quinn and how he benefited of just knowing how to attack certain defenses. And when you get a defensive mind like Mike Zimmer, it'll just be interesting to see how he kind of helps Dak grow as well. Because working with Mike McCarthy and seeing what he did last year, he even expressed like, hey, I need you to keep that going. You had the top offense in the NFL last year. Just keep that going. But I don't know. I think it'll be fun to see how Dak also elevates his game, not that he didn't this season.
The across the hall kind of thing. And that's not something that happens only during the bye week. Across the hall, meaning where the defensive coaches meet with the offensive players. players and talk about what they see, and this is how we try and attack you, and you can do this kind of thing. So, yeah, that's going to be an ongoing, that's going to start in the off season and be a progressive thing, particularly with the quarterback and the defensive coordinator. But I'd like to add one more thing about Zimm, and that is that last year he was out of the NFL, out of football, and I think a lot of people thought that some fans and even some media may think that he wasn't wanted for a job, but there were a lot of things in the personal life, and there was a personal tragedy where he had lost his son, and last time I saw Zimm was about a year and a half ago at the funeral for his son, and they're a coaching family. Mike's dad, a long-time, well-regarded coach, high school coach, and so Zimm follows in Dad's footsteps, and then Adam, Mike's late son, followed in Grandpa and Dad's footsteps, and I remember, of course, we were at Valley Ranch at the time, and so anyway, Adam and his two sisters grew up with Mike and Vicky there in Colleyville, and so Adam wasn't a big guy; he was kind of undersized like his dad, but he played safety and ended up playing at Trinity University down in San Antonio. But Adam, from the time high school and college, he'd be back, it'd be summer, it'd be the mini camps or the off-season stuff, and little Zimm, that's what we called Adam, would be out there on the field, right, with his dad coaching, and almost like not an official internship, but out there learning the family business. And then once he finished school, he went into the NFL and was linebackers coach, assistant linebackers coach, then linebackers coach, and then eventually defensive coordinator for his dad there in Minnesota. And at the funeral, all the Minnesota linebackers were there, and like Harrison Smith, the safety, and all the executives and coaching football operations. And his final year, Adam was consulting with the Bengals, and so Zach, the head coach, and Kate, executive for the Bengals, were there. And anyway, it was a wonderful tribute, but that's one of the reasons why Mike was out of football last year, dealing with, a lot of personal tragedy, and so he's overcome a lot in his life. He had lost his wife. I think Vicky was only like 49 or 50 when she passed unexpectedly, and so you know, things happen in life with these coaches and these players, and yet they overcome and persevere and fall on, get with the help of the people that they brought along, and the people that they brought along in their careers can then come back and help them when they need it. So I'm so happy for Mike that he's back in this area. And Corey and Marky, the daughters. Marky, by the way, she interned here with Cowboys Broadcasting many years ago. So there have been long-time ties with the Zimmer family, with the Cowboys, and so much respect that the Jones family and everyone in football operations has for all of the Zimmers. And so those of us who've been here a long, long time are just thrilled to have Mike back.
What's the difference from Zimmer back then until now that you kind of
he's always been a nice guy, just kind of crusty, back then. I mean, we've all got a few more wrinkles. That's really the only difference. But no, but I think that when you're the head coach, as he was for all those years with the Vikings, and you have to deal with the media and just deal with all of the logistics and be the face of the organization, he'll probably have a lot better relationship or closer relationship with media, just because he's used to dealing with all of that. And so I think that he'll be closer, I don't know if the word more accessible, but until you have to deal with it at that level, now you kind of get how it works in the back and forth. And there's so many more media demands now than when he was here the first time that, I think it'll be fine. And more people will be able to see that side of Mike, the whole person, and just learning how he sees the defense and the way that he talks about the players and stuff. So I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I also like that he mentioned he always hoped he would be able to come back and be back in Dallas. And I think, when you have a guy like that who he said, I wanted to be here, because they even asked, did you hear Rex Ryan's comments? And it's like, I hear a lot of Rex Ryan's comments.
That was funny.
That was funny. He's very good at making light out of those kind of questions, right?
Sly comments. Mm-hmm.
It said what it needed to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also really liked how he said, because the question following was, well, what was the process of getting hired? There was a couple days delay, and he said, I was sick in bed. There was no question of whether I wanted to be here or not. There was really no negotiating. There was no back and forth. I was sick in bed. And so it's real funny, just the reminder of him talking about that story, kind of the narratives that build up when we don't actually always know what's going on behind closed doors. Nobody had any idea.
And the Joneses were in Vegas for the Super Bowl with all that. Yeah.
And and to your point, Kristi, about getting closer to media and talking to media, I really appreciate somebody who's open and honest about those kind of things, because they don't always have to be, right? He could have just left it a mystery and said, oh, well, it happened when it happened, or, some kind of stereotypical answer. But he was like, nope. There's no secrets to hide. It's all out there. Yeah. And I really appreciate a coach that's willing to do that.
Well, he's got a lot of work to do, certainly starting with players, and then coaching hires. We'll be breaking that down coming up in the next break. You're watching Girls Talk Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby. The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
CONCACAF Nations League finals are coming to AT&T Stadium. Don't miss your chance to win and actually to watch North America's best soccer team battle it out in the semifinals on March 21st. Then see who lifts the trophy in the championship on March 24th. Tickets are available now at SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing provider of AT&T Stadium. So go grab yours.
Go and grab your tickets, please, everybody.
Yes.
Switching gears. I had to do it. I'm sorry. Switching gears, though. Talking about Mike Zimmer. He's got some pieces that he has to
makes the whole place
figure out.
Zimmer, if you will.
Is that a Taylor Swift?
Wow.
What's his name?
Shimmer.
Seriously.
The fact that Wanya he know your foolishness at this point. He talking about some just
really
don't start.
Well, but he also knew it was a Taylor Swift reference, so like.
I feel like he just knew you and said this is Taylor Swift.
She must be stopped.
I made a whole little remix in my head. I put on that song. I made a whole little remix in my head about the Cowboys defense and Mike Zimmer. So that's what I do in my spare time, in case you're wondering.
What are some other ones that you have?
Oh boy.
They miss DQ, but they miss sparkling.
You know what? All right. It's time to go.
The lyric is I miss you, but I miss sparkling. So.
And you rhymes with DQ. We get it.
Thank you, Kristi.
I like it.
Kristi, I'm glad you appreciate it. Other people in the room, not so much.
She's over here egging her on.
But no, ladies, switching gears. Something that kind of caught my eye this morning. Shout out to Brandon. I think he actually posted this. Mike Zimmer was touching on the impact and what he loves about Stephon Gilmore, and that was last year when the Dallas Cowboys acquired Gilmore to this defense. Can you go ahead and play that, Jazzy?
Stephon Gilmore going from the Colts to the Cowboys to partner up now with Trayvon Diggs, who's been one of the more exciting players, I think, both ways in the NFL since he hit the bricks.
Well, the thing is, I worked out Gilmore, or I went to the workout when he come out of South Carolina. I loved him. He's long, good in and out of breaks. He's been to, I think, 3 times All-Pro or something like that. So I liked him a lot anyway. And he's got great acceleration. He's a tough, competitive guy, very good again in the press. And then you look at Diggs, and Diggs has probably the best hands of any corner out there. He catches everything. That's why he gets a lot of interceptions. I know that he doesn't play with his technique is hit and miss sometimes. He's a little bit of a riverboat gambler. And again, I do think he's good in the press when he wants to get up there and press. Sometimes he lines up 5 yards off and kind of side shuffles, and he'll get beat on some double moves. So I do think if he would get a little bit more discipline in his techniques and things like that, he may not have as many interceptions, but he'd deny a lot more players from getting the ball, and he would give up less plays.
Obviously, that word discipline there from Zimmer again last year, and certainly working with Stephon, if, of course, he brings back Stephon this year, could really take his game to new heights. What impact, if Zimmer were to bring back Stephon, would that make on this defense?
Well, first of all, it's not Zimmer bringing back Stephon. It's Jerry Jones and the cap number. So I think it's really more the open market that is going to determine this. So last year, Stephon counted $9.92 million against the cap. I'm not going to go by base salary. I'm saying what does it count against the cap? So he was $9.92 million. That was the 5th highest cap number of the Cowboys. The only players that counted more were Dak, D-Law, Zach Martin, and Tony Pollard. If you look to the coming season, and they're of the top 60 contracts, so these are players that are under contract, he would be 9. If you were able to bring him back at the same number,
at 9.2 million?
At 9.92, he would be the 9th highest paid player, because what's going to happen is Trayvon's number goes up markedly this year. He's going to count 15.3. And then Donovan Wilson is slated at 7.4. So there's a couple of players in the secondary that are pretty high. So can you do 15.3 million and then add another, let's say, 10 million for 2 of your cornerbacks? Well, sure you can, but will you? Because how are you going to be able to allocate everything? And honestly, until they decide, and maybe they've made the decision and they're working on the negotiations on the structure, but with Dak at over $59 million, until you know how that's going to happen, that's the first domino that has to fall, and how what resources do we have to allocate to everyone else? So I know that Zimm would love to have Gilmore back. All of us would love to have Gilmore back. I just don't know if it's going to be financially possible.
So would that mean he would just have to take less money? Stephon.
And it depends on how other teams see him. Yeah. If will they offer him the 9.9 or even more? So interesting.
Also taking into account the film that he's put on from this season alone, because he had to be that guy after Trey was out, week 3. He had to step up and be that guy. He had to be ready. And he was when he came in here. He was a plug-and-play guy. But to come in here thinking you had Trayvon on the other side, Trey's not in anymore, and you have to really be the older guy in that room, because Jordan Lewis was still coming back from his injury. He was still rehabbing a little bit. You were that guy. So I would not be surprised if other teams had interest in him, because why wouldn't they? He had a phenomenal season. The only thing is now that shoulder injury, post-surgery, to kind of see how he heals up. But other than that, I mean, other teams would be foolish not to at least try to acquire and see if they can get him, because he definitely shows. He showed this season he has a lot of juice left in that tank.
It would be easier to just, I would assume, to bring him back from a schematic standpoint, but then also to, with Trayvon coming back, I've definitely learned to temper expectations with players coming back from ACLs. Not only that, like specifically the way that Trayvon plays, and the fact that he will, drive on balls. He will, take chances. He will jump routes and things like that. You got to be his confidence and stuff is something that's going to take some time. So I do think having Stefan here could be valuable for that reason, you know, knowing just that you have a guy that's secure there. But I will say this draft is heavy in corner, and there's some good corners out there. And one thing about Zimm is, like we talked about it earlier, is he's not a just one shoe fits all, like you talked about. Defensive coordinator. He's going to ask these guys to do several different things, so it's not going to just be zone. It's going to be the matchup game. It's going to be, what does this game call for? What does this matchup call for? And so I do think the IQ from the secondary and how they process, how they communicate is going to be important as well. I do think Stefan fits that, but I think there's a lot of guys in this draft that I think could fit this team as well.
One thing Zimm has done historically, and you look at who was one of his main guys in Minnesota, and that was Terrence Newman, who was a 2003 first-round draft pick here. This was Parcells' very first year, and Newman was the first-round pick for the Cowboys, and he kept him with him. Zimmer kept Newman with him, and Newman played a long time in the league, and he was one of those reliable veterans. So Zimmer does like to rely on guys that he knows. But the other factor here is at $5.9 million for his contract last year, Jordan Lewis. And I think Jordan Lewis is one of the unsung heroes of the Cowboys defense, and the ability to play the slot. You know, if you... That's so different playing inside and outside. And, you know, Deron Bland, you could, if you have someone, keep Trayvon, obviously, is going to stay outside if he comes back healthy.
Right.
But Bland, you could move inside, whether you keep Gilmore or, as Aisha said, you know, draft a younger guy. Put him outside.
It's more important.
Well, I'd be
sorry.
No. We're just on the topic of younger guys, and I wanted to open up for discussion. I'd be interested to see how Zimm could help develop a guy like Eric Scott Jr., who you didn't get to see. He wasn't active for any games this season, who, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing to take the first year to relearn the language of an NFL team and understand how different college is from NFL. I mean, we saw it with Jalen Tolbert from, you know, his rookie season to last year, the difference that the work he put in, his note-taking, his studying, paid dividends for him to get more of a role in the offense. So on the other side of the ball, I'm interested to see how somebody like Zimmer can come in and help a guy like Eric Scott Jr., who didn't necessarily have that opportunity last year, but now Zimm can come in and really have an exponential impact on a growth for somebody like that.
You just can get on the field. I mean, when you have a Stephon Gilmore and Deron Bland is leading the league in interceptions, pick sixes and stuff, it is difficult to get on the field. Kristi, you brought up Jordan Lewis. I think I think the conversation is going to come down to which one of those guys it is. Which one is the most valued in that spot and stuff. And because, to your point, the nickel position is so different, and it's so much more valuable to me at this point in this game, the way the game's played right now. Having a good boundary corner is fine. It's good. Like, you want to mediate the big play, but the way that you can attack the middle of the field, if the other team doesn't have a serviceable nickel corner, it's a huge deal in this the way people play offense now. So that's gonna have me. I am preparing myself for us to not see some of our favorites.
What about J-Ron? Because the way that Dan Quinn utilized him, J-Ron Kearse, safety, and so, you know, down in the box, matching up with tight ends and the like, his versatility, the size, and Dan Quinn, I thought, did a great job of utilizing him in creative ways, but he might command some money in the free agency.
Well, I don't think he's staying.
Well, no, I think that I just think. Well, I'm gonna be straight up with you. I mean, the film is the film. And the film wasn't that great from J-Ron Kearse this year. Whether it was health aside, whether it was health aside, or if there were some things that he was dealing with. I do think he did play his best football with Dan Quinn at the
previous
helm.
year.
The previous year he was fantastic. But I mean, people attack the middle of this field intentionally and with ease at times. And so also too with Zimmerman's system, the nickel will be there, but there'll be some dime, there'll be some other things, but those things will be very situational to me. I don't know. Zim's not he's multiple in his defenses, and so whereas a guy like a Jaron Kearse would be on the field a lot before because of how much the Cowboys ran nickel, there are some guys that I do think are going to take some steps back snaps wise, or may not even be on this roster because of the lack of usage. Like what Dan Quinn did with the big with dime and nickel is not. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's normal. It's people do it in the league. Like don't get me wrong, but how consistent he was with it is not normal. So, with J-Ron, I think you'll see Marquise Bell go back to safety.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, because the linebacker core is going to look very different.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna have linebackers,
real linebackers.
But you will have. But I will say though, guys like Donovan Wilson are going to be very grateful for a Zimm. I do think that the strong safety position as a whole, I think the safeties are going to enjoy him, period. Because they get to show off a little bit.
I also think, too, back to the conversation we had with him yesterday at the press conference, he talked about a process. And he said, I hate explaining it that way. He said, but part of that process is looking at the personnel and putting them where it best suits them. And to me, my little light bulb went on. I was like, oh, a Marquise Bell, a Micah Parsons, the moving pieces that kind of had to move into those retrospective positions this last season. To your point, I don't think it looks the same. And for somebody like Jaron Kearse, who didn't have the best year, who was struggling to stay healthy, it's hard to say, Kristi. Looking at the laundry list of free agents, I don't think he will be returning.
It was important, though. I liked that the Cowboy. They guaranteed his money this past year. It was late. It was after
Dono.
It was after the other safeties had gotten their pay, and there kind of was a little indicator to me that maybe they were going to be going in a different direction going into the season. So
I'm excited to see better safety play because you talked about this really all season. Where's the safeties? What are the safeties doing? The safeties need to be better. I'm excited to see Zimm come in and polish that up and really just refine drop-offs within this defense that did cause losses, that created explosive plays against them. The run defense, he wouldn't even answer questions about that yesterday because he said, we haven't even started. I'm a day and a half into this job, and then that's when he said there's a process that goes into this, all of this. But I really think, I saw a lot of back and forth from Cowboys fans, and, understandably so. Everyone's still a little bitter to how the season ended, but I really do think turning the page with somebody like Zimm, who can come in here, he knows what he's doing, he has experience, he understands, he has familiarity with what it is to be a Cowboys coach, because it's very different than being a different coach in the NFL. It's very different from Minnesota. His familiarity with what comes with this job, he is the guy that can really refine those drop-offs in this defense.
And when we talk about putting players in position, I'm interested to see where he plays Micah. Because that was a question that was asked yesterday. What are you going to do with she looking like what are you going to do with Micah? And he mentioned that he wants to figure out what Micah wants to do first. And he's going to do that with every single player, talking about that process, figure out where they feel best at, and then kind of go from there. So I think that when you talk about this process, I think that's important as well.
I love that he said, I'm not about to talk to y'all about it before I talk to him about it. And there were just so many little things that he said in his press conference that stood out to me, and that was one of them, because player-coach confidentiality matters. I'm trying to tell, it matters, and the fact that he even took a moment to say, hey, no, I'm not.
Setting a boundary.
It's setting a boundary.
That's healthy.
It's healthy. It reminds me of a parent. I'm just being straight up with you, hey, hold on. I know what you're talking about. He did at this parent-teacher conference. Let me talk to my kid. Let me talk to my kid real quick, because I'm gonna
But also, he's so new in this job. He hasn't had time to talk to Micah, I'm sure.
No,
but I just too in depth about it. You know?
But I just liked the attitude. But another thing I noticed about him as well, and when you talk about where's he gonna play Micah, where's he gonna do things like this. First of all, Micah gonna be playing linebacker more. Second of all, I think, but he also does blitzes up there, A gap, B gap. He should have fun with how they do things and disguise things. But I will say also too, I liked that there's somebody asked him a question about Micah, like, and the person was just kind of hyping up Micah, you know, like, Micah's just an exceptional player. He's like, yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah.
He's a special player. But he didn't gush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know it's small, but it just means something to me that he wasn't like, he's like, nah, but I got to coach him. Even when he talked about Trayvon Diggs, a lot of people were afraid to criticize some of the things Trayvon Diggs did. He sat up there right there, and this was not last year. Because I thought Trayvon Diggs actually refined a lot of the things coming to this season that he mentioned. But he sat up there and said, yeah, he needs to work on this, he needs to work on this, he needs to work on this. And I just feel like I'm not trying to be your friend type situation, but I do want to be relatable to you. I do want you to be able to come to me. I kind of heard that in his responses, even for the fact that, like, some of the reporters were asking questions about some of these players, and he was like, yeah, he's a good player. Yeah. He's like, I got to do my research. I got to do my homework. I got to watch my tape. Or I know what tape I didn't already watch. Yeah. So I like that. I don't know.
Now, I can tell you that once we get to the regular season, the Monday afternoon press conferences are going to be different when it's the coordinators.
Wait. How's it going to be?
It's just, Quinn comes in. I love Dan Quinn. I do. Yeah. May come in and have an opening statement and this, and so we did this, and we got to do this better, and working on that. Okay, what you got for me? And then he'd take the questions, and it's going to be a little more blunt.
All right. Well, we're going to take our second break. On that note, we've got a couple vacancies within this Dallas Cowboys organization. We'll talk about that coming up in the next break. You're watching Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Cowboys Game Time, powered by Lenovo, the official gaming platform and community of the Dallas Cowboys. Sign up now to compete in Fortnite for a chance to win a VIP experience at the 2024 Dallas Cowboys Draft Party. Qualifiers begin on February 24th and run through the 28th. Learn more and register at DallasCowboys.com. DallasCowboysGameTime.com, actually.
Yeah, Lenovo right here. Thank you, Gerald. Gerald Young from Lenovo got us set up with these. Thank you, Gerald.
All right, ladies, we've got a few minutes left. We've got a couple of vacancies. We've got a secondaries coach, obviously filled by Joe Witt Jr., defensive line coach, that was Aiden Dirty, and assistant defensive line coach, Sharif Floyd. Who out there, I'm not going to look at Aisha, she looks a little,
I don't know.
Who out there has caught y'all's eye that could possibly fill those vacancies?
Really don't know. Patterson, Andre, with the Giants. Andre the Giant. But the Giants denied permission. Of course, Andre was here as an assistant for several years and familiarity with Zimmer, and so know that there would have been interest there. But the way that it works in the NFL is lateral moves. If a coach is under contract, the only time that you have to let him out of their contract if it's basically a promotion, like going up to coordinator or becoming a head coach. And so I think it's going to be interesting, and I think that losing Coach Dirty is a big deal. I'm so happy for him to go to Seattle and become a a defensive coordinator. Wonderful for him. So excited, such a good coach. and good person, and the way he got along and motivated the defensive linemen and those guys. There was a lot of versatility,
Right.
coaching the guys up that they could play multiple positions, slide inside, go back outside. Those are big shoes to fill. To come in and replace Coach Dirty. And then Joe Witt, it's not that at first I was kind of surprised. It's like, man, he had been with Mike McCarthy back in Green Bay but at the same time, if he didn't get defensive coordinator here at this time, when's he going to get it? So he had to, I think it was the right thing for him career-wise to move along and join Dan Quinn on the staff there in Washington. But those are two big losses for the Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
Happy for them.
For sure.
Yeah,
However,
personally.
time to turn the page. The only one that really came to my mind, and because it was kind of a shocking...
Steve Wilkes.
Yeah,
I know you were going with that.
Well, right, but when there's talent like that that's available, you at least check into it. It's up to him if he wants to take kind of a demotion, if you will, not being a DC and go into a positions coach, but you look into that immediately. I'm just saying, it was shocking that it happened.
Yeah.
He's coming off of a Super Bowl appearance team. Obviously, they're doing something right. You want to talk about defeating the Shanahan tree?
There you have it.
I mean,
there's your secret sauce.
They held the Chiefs to
they played great 49ers.
And then to lose a Greenlaw in that game. And again, listening to kind of some of the San Fran commentary and stuff, their run defense did take a step back this year for some reason, and so people were very.
There was no place to go but down. They were at the top.
Yeah, well, people were very upset about the latter half of the season and the run defense not being as good as it was before. But I say that to say I would definitely be interested in a Steve Wilkes because he has coached in practice with your nemesis.
That's what I'm saying.
They're the nemesis at this point. Hey,
they're the standard. They're the standard of the NFC. And you are going to have to go right now. You have to go through the 49ers to get to where you want to be.
You want to be all in.
Yeah.
If you want to be all in, you need to take the all in approach of getting somebody who knows what the conversations are on that side.
Mm-hmm. They finished with number 8 defense in the NFL, third best in scoring defense. I think that'd be
but
a
at the
great
top
addition.
and kicking butt.
That part.
Forget the statistics.
That part.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's going to be important. Looking into that, but when you mentioned there's the vacancies. There's some spots that's not vacant. That when a coach comes in,
that's true.
They pick and choose who they want, and now you are kind of late in the process.
I know.
Dang it!
I know.
You are kind of late in the process, so maybe you're limited in some of the folks that you can get, but there might be some changes in some other positions as well. I mean, other position coaches as well, not just the ones that's vacant.
Oh yeah,
because
for sure.
They're married to each other, so it's like.
And it sounded like yesterday that Coach Zimmer will be keeping Al Harris.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He wants to. I'm sure he wants the opportunity to work with Al, and also too, it's hard not to notice around the NFL that a lot of former players are getting hired as coaches, and it's resonating with a lot of these players as well. So or coordinators rather as well. So I think that's a trend to continue to follow, and Al Harris being here and actually still being retained, I think is important to the team. I don't know what the guys would feel like if they lost all of them. It's been too much of a
hit.
That would be too much to me. So
all right. Well, hopefully we've got some more coaching news next week. That'll do it for today.
I'm sick of news.
That's a wrap. Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner. We'll see y'all next week.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!